Welcome everyone, another edition of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. That's Becker, I am Orr. We're going to have some fun today, hash out a number of the current topics in the financial world, plus a few other issues. What are we going to be talking about today, Kevin?
Well, today we want to talk about a variety of different topics. We're going to start off with some headlines, how things are in the real world, and how does that play out in the market? Is it the same? Will markets go up because of good news? Markets go down because of bad news? After that, we're going to tackle politics. As we know now, after the January 6th scenario of the electoral college votes being counted, we now have a new president coming in on the 20th. So we'll see how that plays out in the market. Then we want to start talking about the richest people in the world. It has changed again. We have a new number one over the last week and a half. After that, we should be getting into things along the lines of how is the vaccine rolling out so that we can start to get back to normal lives. And then, as always, we have our question of the week that we want to touch base on. So without any further ado, start us off, Clint.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a reminder, everyone, if you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button, like the video. That way you'll be kept in the loop for next videos, and it helps us out being found by the YouTube algorithm as well. So please hit that subscribe button. First topic here, you talked about it, the headlines. I think many folks have been confused by what's been happening. You just get this parade of negative headlines, yet the market continues to go higher. It's been an interesting scenario to say the least. There's been a great chart that I'll pull up here from All-Star Charts, and you can see all the different magazine covers in the market essentially moving in the opposite direction. What's your take on all this, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that you don't normally see. But as we know, the market is a lead indicator when it comes to the way the economies start to work. They don't sort of react to what's going on in the big news. They are ahead of the big news, usually where it is. So unless it's something that they haven't forecasted, like when the pandemic hit, you don't usually get a huge fall off. So even with the unrest that went on Wednesday, we're still seeing that, well, the markets have been fairly unaffected by this whole scenario. Mm-hmm. So again, it is one of those things where we're a leading indicator. So just because you're at an all-time high and just because you've had some bad events going on doesn't necessarily mean the market's going to fall. I mean, just the chart alone shows us that one.
Absolutely. And to build on that, you also have the idea that the news events may capture our attention, might be important for our lives. It doesn't necessarily mean it's important to the markets. They're not always going to sync up. That's simply the way it works. And also when they print the magazines, they do the headlines, they're normally telling us what happened, whereas the market and the investors are trying to figure out what's going to be down the road. So you have different viewpoints there as well. So great visual here by All-Star Charts, kind of gives us an idea that they don't always sync up. And that kind of leads us into the political situation, because that's what's been driving many of the headlines. They've been all about what's been happening in the political arena. You mentioned it in the intro there. We got the Georgia runoff. We had the January 6th vote. Interesting situation. Let's do some wild speculation here. What do you think's on the horizon for the political scene in the U.S., and what is that going to mean for the markets, Kevin?
Well, I think that, the original thing was if you got a blue wave, this was going to be really bad for the markets. And as we've seen, we do now have the blue wave as it is.
It's a small wave. It's a tiny wave.
Yeah, it's a tiny wave if we have to do it that way. I mean, you've got 11 seats over in the House. You're basically 50-50 in the Senate. So, all this stuff of that. Well, we're going to start to see the new green energy deal, and we're going to see free education for everybody. Those probably will not pass. There's enough moderates in there that would vote those scenarios down. So we're probably going to go more to a mainstream sort of middle of the road, which is probably what the markets need more than anything else. We're not going to get any policies that are going to be great. We're probably not going to get any policies that are going to be terrible for the way the economy is running. So I see this as being something going forward. So yeah, not sort of a blue wave, maybe a blue ripple is what we should prefer to call it going forward. But yeah, I think
that's the next headline, Kevin, the blue ripple. I like it.
Yeah, we'll see where it's going from there.
You're right. And I'm on the same page. They have in the House only 11-seat majority, and Biden's been picking a few of those people to be in his cabinet, so that majority is actually shrinking. It's the smallest House majority we've seen in 100 years. Senate is dead heat, as you mentioned, 50-50. So you don't have a lot of leeway there. They really can't even lose one or two Democrats. Otherwise, they won't get any bills through. And if you look at history, the most recent history, Obama in his first term, he had the House, he had the Senate, and obviously the presidency. He got one major thing done. He got Obamacare. Trump, same thing. When he came in, House, Senate, and presidency, he got the tax cuts done. And then in the midterms, in both those cases, they ended up losing one House or the Senate, and then it was far more difficult going forward.
Yeah,
so the idea that
that's always,
they'll get this... Yeah.
That's the way it seems to have gone, right? And you're perfectly correct with every of those aspects. And I would assume the same thing's going to go on in the first term here. The only difference is, as you mentioned, with such a thin margin, you may not even get that one major thing accomplished this time. I assume it's going to be stuff in the lines of more for the COVID scenario, and you're going to get a little bit more on the infrastructure spending. But other than that, yeah, it's probably going to be a harder place to go. But based on the fact that
it could be more stimulus. They could get more in that check instead of the $600. Maybe they top it up to $2,000. It could be a big infrastructure bill. Like that stuff, I think could get through. But your more extreme items, probably not going to happen. No, so it might be more market-friendly investment stuff that actually gets through.
Exactly. But as we've seen, so we've been hitting new highs. Well, as the stock market goes up, the richest people in the world go up. And what was it? Just over a week ago, we saw that Jeff Bezos has gone from number 1 to number 2, and Elon Musk has taken over. Boy,
yeah,
Tesla,
the
richest car company in the world. Do they make
cars?
I
looked up some data here for us here, Kevin. It's been remarkable. The Tesla shares went from about $45 to about $880, a 20-fold increase in about 18 months. Elon Musk specifically, in the year of 2020, his net worth increased by about $140 billion in 1 year. Wow. Or if you're curious, that works out to $265,000. $265,000 per minute.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And I mean, if we take a look, even if you compare this to how things work going forward for how do you decide who the richest person in the world is, 20 years ago, out of all the names on this chart, there was only one there. That was Bill Gates. And his net worth at that point in time was less than half of what it is today. So, I mean, you're talking about the fact that this can change astronomically based on where stocks go and who owns the stock. So, Bezos owns the majority of Amazon. Elon Musk owns the majority of Tesla. Bill Gates still owns the majority of Microsoft. So we're seeing that if you've got a great stock and you've got a great idea that goes forward, hey, you could become the richest man in the world too.
I suppose, yeah. And this chart was done, I picked the numbers off from Forbes on Friday. If we redid it today, Jeff Bezos would be back to number 1 because Tesla shares dropped a little bit yesterday. So you can see it changes in real time, the numbers there. And then for Jeff Bezos as well, his lead could be even larger because he did have a divorce there and he did lose 50, 60 billion, whatever the number was.
It's hard to say that divorce is really going to take you down a lot, eh? And poor man, he could have been number 1 for quite a while.
I don't know how he sleeps at night with only 185 billion. That's got to be tough.
Exactly. All I know is we should probably put a pool together and see if we can bet on who's going to be there at the end of the day. We'll get Vegas odds on it.
Can have a bit of fun with it. Well, moving on, let's go to the next topic here, something a little more serious, the vaccine, the rollout, and then particularly the economic consequences of that, because we had some pretty big promises when that vaccine was first announced as how fast it would come out, the implications when people would get it. And you can see on the screen there, I got this from CTV. They have a daily update, I believe. And we're at, 0.9% of the population, the bulk of that for vaccinations in Ontario and Quebec. What are your thoughts here, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I remember all you heard Donald Trump talk about down in the States was Operation Warp Speed. Well, it's definitely not a Star Trek warp speed that they're using by any stretch of the imagination with the way that the percentages are going. But yeah, I mean, it's been about roughly a month now. And if we were only done 0.9% of the population, I mean, you're going to be, 2030 before everybody's going to be vaccinated. I think some of the things are, though, that when they initially came out, it was we're saving 2 vaccine shots, one now and then one roughly 3 to 4 weeks down the road.
Right, yeah.
I think most of that has now been abandoned where everybody's going to get the shot first. And then we'll see if they get it down 3 weeks down the road. Maybe it's 6 weeks before you get your second shot. But that way you'll probably get a little bit more vaccine going out. And I think you're going to have to do that because of the restrictions and everything else. Any thoughts you've got for that?
Yeah, they seem a little less concerned about getting the second shot at the exact right time. So, if it's a little later, but more people have it, that's probably a good situation. And I think that's what you'll see going forward. I believe Ontario just last Friday or Saturday, I can't remember the exact date, but they got 10,000 vaccinations done in 1 day. So they're starting to ramp up. So I imagine if you looked at this chart again in a week or in a month, it would be a much different situation. But the economic implication here is huge. You need to see these numbers increase quite rapidly. Otherwise, we're not going to get the economy to reopen. And that has a big impact in numerous sectors. It kind of across the board there. And when do you think that would happen? Do you think reopening third quarter 2021 or?
Well, you're talking probably closer to the end of the year now. I mean, I know all the promises were sort of end of summer, end of fall. You're probably going to get that, 75, 80% herd immunity scenario, and then we'd be fine by the end of the year. I mean, I know the Manitoba numbers now are maybe you'll get 75% of the entire population vaccinated by the end of this year. So you're going to have to start speeding it up because otherwise that herd immunity won't kick in fast enough and we're still going to be dealing with this. So yeah, if we want economic recovery, we're going to have to start moving this up and just, abandon the second shot. We'll get to it. But we're going to have to get to it once we've got a whole bunch more people done in the first place.
Yeah,
So
from an economic
that's
point of
what I
view,
can
this
see.
this chart's a little disappointing. We thought we'd be a little further ahead by
Yes.
now, and we were hoping reopening would be sooner, and it looks like that's getting pushed back. Hopefully still 2021, like you mentioned, but the more you delay it, the bigger impact it does have on the economy. And with that, we'll
So
move to
what's
the
the question of the week?
here. Oh, go ahead.
I said, what's the question of the week we have today?
Here we go, on the same topic, and a big one, and I've been asked this question a number of times, I'm sure you have as well. It has to do with the currency.
Yes.
It's been all over the map in 2020. Early in the year, U.S. currency was soaring, Canadian currency took a hit, and then the opposite for the 9 months that followed that. What is happening with the Canadian dollar, Kevin?
Well, we're seeing the Canadian dollar start to reappreciate itself. Now, I'm not betting the 2008 scenario again, where we go to 110 US. I mean, I know there's tons of people that would love that. I mean, snowbirds would really appreciate it, assuming they could go down south. But right now, things are just not working that way. So we have to find out what's going on and see how it's playing from there. But yeah, the currency scenario is more or less, as the US has started to see it peel off, as the world starts to reopen, you're probably going to get more materials, more energy. Thus, that's a big portion of our economic background, and we're starting to see that. And so we're going to start to see our currency appreciate. I don't think we're going to go to the 85s or 90s anytime soon, but probably closer to that 75, 80 range for a while. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You're probably going to be that 75, 80 cent range for a while. And it doesn't mean it's going to be linear. There could certainly be bouts where the U.S. dollar gets some strength. Or the stock market gets a little turbulence. You get a patch of volatility. U.S. is still a safe haven currency, so we could get bouts where the U.S. currency gets some strength. But in general, I do think that kind of downward trend there that you described would make sense, where you'd get your commodity-based countries like Australia, like us, that would get a bit of a boost as you get that reopening, as you see more demand in that sector, could support the overall currency as well. Any last comments, Kevin? You want to wrap that one up?
No, I think that basically says a lot of what's going on for what's in the news for currency wise. Other than that, visiting the website now that we've been live for a little while, Facebook ads, the whole 9 yards, I think is really worthwhile. And if you really need to get in touch with us, chat with Clinton and Kevin. It's not Becker and Orr, it's still Clinton and Kevin, right down on the bottom, and make sure you get it from there.
Absolutely.
On the last points, what do you have to add?
Yeah, go to that website there, chatwithclintonandkevin.com. You can fill in the form. It comes directly to us. We're happy to answer any questions. And that quick reminder, we are going to do a video next week, Tuesday at 9 a.m., and it'll be live. We're trying to find ways for people to interact with us. You can use that form, or you can tune in next week at 9 a.m. for that live session and ask away. We'd be happy to do that. So with that, we'll wish everyone a good day. So stay safe and take care.